Hello, Linda Ziegler here, back with another lesson about creative cognition, and you're going to use your imagination. And we're also going to kind of analyze where all can you use your imagination? Is it just for fun? It can be more than that, and we're going to talk about that. So I want to look at this visual, and you can see there's a lot going on in his head, her head. And that's imagination, and that includes wondering and prior knowledge. If you don't have those things, you really can't imagine. So we're going to put those things together for you to understand this more completely. So our cognitive goal, what I want you to know, is that mental images are created by connecting your imagination to what you already know and adding a little taste of wondering in it. For example, this is a book that's a children's book, and it's really fun, but the author and the illustrator really used their imagination. Now, they started off with some basic knowledge. For instance, they did it about crayons. So they knew what crayons were used for. They knew that most of us have them in their house. They knew that all kinds of things can happen to crayons. They can get broken, they can get lost, and so they used that, but then they added a little wondering. What if these crayons could talk? And that's how they started this book, using their imagination together with wondering and prior knowledge. So let's think of something else that might use imagination, and that is jokes. This is just an old 101 school jokes, and I always think they're fun, and kids usually love jokes too. But do you know really what happens when there's a joke? The author of the joke sets it up for you to be thinking about one thing, and then boom, pops in something like a surprise. You think of something else. So I have an example of that, and I'm going to read the joke as you look at the pictures, and we kind of think about that. Alice said, "Mom, my teacher told me not to take any more baths." Mother says, "Are you sure that's what she said?" Mother is picturing, like, no more baths? Really, that doesn't sound like something a teacher would say. Then Alice goes on to really say what the teacher said. "Well, she told me to stay out of hot water or she'd keep me after school." Hot water does happen in a bath, but that's not the kind of hot water she's talking about. She's talking about trouble. All kinds of trouble that maybe Alice was causing. And so she said, "Stay out of hot water." But she didn't really mean to not take a bath. So that's what I mean by a surprise, and that people have to think about, and it just kind of creates new things that they hadn't really realized, hadn't thought about in that same way. Well, I'm going to tell you that's exactly what inventors do. And I'm not going to read you this whole book, but it's the story of Thomas Edison. And the title is The Value of Creativity. That's kind of interesting. So Thomas Edison had some struggles in life. I'm going to tell you some basic things, because this is the story of his life, kind of put in a narrative form. And I did want you to see this particular um, illustration that made me think of our imagination. But he really did have an imagination to a point that it caused him trouble. He actually would go out there and think, and when he was supposed to be doing other things. So he got some jobs when he was younger and tried to do the jobs, but his imagination kept taking, well, what about this? What about this? And then he didn't get his job done. Sometimes he'd be up all night and then he'd sleep for his job. And so really, when he was in his early 20s, people kind of thought he was a failure. They just didn't know until he started inventing things that helped people. He did the telegraph. Um, the, he helped with the telephone. He helped with that. The phonograph, which is like a record player that when we used to first have things that we could choose the music. But one of his most famous things was the light bulb. And so that is what they have on this cover. They used that. And it's a really good story. So if you can want to research anything about Thomas Edison, it's pretty interesting. He really did use his creative abilities and improve the lives of people everywhere. And they were made easier with the things that he invented. So he started out, he kind of overused his imagination and he didn't perform well because of it. Now, what he gave us, though, were some very important steps into growing and becoming more than what he even imagined. I don't think he imagined computers. So there was always more, but we always started then with what we knew. And he helped us have a baseline for creation on many things. So I'd like to kind of think about that. And I want us to do some creating with his most important invention, and that is a lamp. But we're going to take it on a journey. For instance, here's the base of the lamp, and we're going to actually, like the crayons, do some personification. So since it has the eyes, I'm going to tell you this lamp base is alive. What if? Now the bulb is another part, and I can screw it out and then screw it back or whatever, but it too has a face. So it's going to have its own thoughts and personification, that which means make things that are not real people seem like and act like they're real people. This is the final character, a shade. It all goes together pretty well, or does it? So as we use these objects to stimulate our imagination, we know lamps, and we're wondering, what if this lamp had different parts that were alive? How would they get along? What's the problem? Where would they live? I've just taken this simple, basic narrative, and I just kind of took a square, and up here you can see I've kind of established the characters for you. So I'm trying to stimulate your imagination, but I don't care. You could have the setting be anywhere. It could be in a bathroom, a bedroom, a living room, wherever. And then there's going to be a problem. These characters are either, they're probably going to have a problem with each other in some way. a conflict. And they're going to try to solve it several ways before they finally imagine and find the solution. And the solution is going to then have an ending, just to say, hey, we can all get along. We can work together. And when we work together, things are bright and they light up. So I've kind of given you the ending and I've given you the characters, but it is up to you to write, to plan first. I would just jot this down and you can draw some things out for planning if you would like, or write just some words to give you some ideas and then put it in the form of a short story. When you've done that, then I'd like you to share it with an adult or anyone in your household. That would be fun. Our final thought about imagination is this is a quote from another real thinker, and his name is Albert Einstein. And he said, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Wow. So as an inventor, he would imagine it, and then now we have it. That was the coming attraction. So inventors must imagine to create. You know, we could do that too. We can imagine the future and things getting better. It's going to help us feel good too. And we will get back to a more normal life. I promise. See you next time.